Hello and welcome to the For Frequency's Sake podcast network. You are listening to Cards Subject to Change. I am your co-host, the Wizard CZ. With me as always, the Honorable Nick Bull. Nick, how are you tonight?
Hey, Monday night, as we're taping, it's no secret, we're taping on Monday night. I'm happy Monday's over. I don't know about you, Wizard, but I am happy Monday's over. But I'm not saying this is a bad thing. This podcast is a great thing, but I'm happy Monday's behind us, brother.
I completely understand. I'm a little salty that we're recording during Raw, but at the same time, both of our schedules did not really mesh well today. So the only thing that I really want to see on Raw, which I'm recording it, is whether Ciampa wins the U.S. title or not.
Yeah, that's a lot of buzz behind him right now, and rightfully so. He was a guy who kind of got lost in the shuffle once NXT lost the black and gold and went fluorescent, if you will. A guy who was well respected and called upon many times to work in the ring, worked good programs, had some great programs with Gargano when they teamed as DIY, and made a great. He had a couple different title runs, but a guy that definitely, I guess you could consider one of Triple H's guys, is starting to get some push on the main roster.
And I think that's fantastic. And that's on our list. I don't want to spend too much time, like we talked about off air, discussing the current product because we got a busy show tonight. But I think that's one of the key points we need to talk about is Tommaso Ciampa. I agree. He completely got lost in the shuffle. He did get a second title run. I thought that was very nice. The program with Braun Breaker really put a lot of shine on Breaker. He's really grown on me. I can't say the same thing for the paint splatter NXT, but changes are coming from what I understand. If Tommaso wins the title, to me, the next logical step is for Triple H to do everything he can to get Johnny Gargano back in the WWE and put a program between him and Ciampa.
Well, I would second that. But I think Triple H has done a pretty good job so far in just a few days on the job, Wizard. And I think you'll agree, though it's not official, widely rumored, Sasha Banks has re-signed. We both talked about her being probably Triple H's highest priority.
Yeah.
It's great Ciampa's getting featured, but I thought his next biggest priority was to go out and get Karrion Kross. And lo and behold, if you stuck around and watched SmackDown on Friday night, you were treated to quite the surprise, and a good surprise, having Karrion Kross come back in.
I 100% agree. I don't always watch the main roster shows to their full extent. I will usually dip out an hour to an hour and a half in because I'm either tired or I'm just bored with the product. I stuck around through SmackDown. I am so glad I did. You and our good friend DJ both got the same text at just about the same time, all capital letters. Karrion effing Kross is back. And his music hit, and I'm just sitting here like, no way. And then he comes out and he blindsides Drew McIntyre. Just brilliant. And the fact that he's not wearing some kind of bizarre Spartan gimmick, he's back to his NXT Karrion Kross.
I probably am one of the happiest people that he is back on the roster. This is another show and another time, but times you were most upset with the product, and his time where he was pushed to the moon in NXT was unbeatable, and then went and lost to Jeff Hardy in about 90 seconds in his main roster debut. That's easily top 5 for me. Let's visit that another show, another time. So happy he is getting his real quote-unquote chance. And look at all the potential matchups you have there. You have a viable contender at Roman. You've got someone for Drew.
Yep.
You've got someone for Riddle down the road. I mean, the matchups are going to be fun and endless. Cody, when he gets back in the picture, it's going to be a good thing. It's going to be a good thing.
And I want to say something to that degree. I read earlier today that WWE is, or not WWE, USA Network, I'm sorry. USA Network is kind of, well, quite frankly, upset that they don't have a main title. So the rumor that I heard, the possibility, is that Cross, who, the other thing about that, Scarlett coming back with him, just had to be, it had to be that way. She put the hourglass in the ring, just like his NXT run, saying, I'm next to Roman Reigns. But I think what they're going to do, and I'll be interested to see if they do it and how they do it, is have Karrion Kross challenge for just one title and then move him to Raw.
Yeah, and, hey, money talks, right, Wiz? Money
Absolutely.
talks. And right here, you've got a company coming to you and saying, hey, 3 hours of programming a week, cable's #1 episodic rated show, blah, 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 and the champion's not on it. I would feel a little slighted. We have seen in the past where Fox has kind of been the squeaky wheel that got the grease and got some stuff that they wanted. So maybe this is going to be good. I don't know about the interim title in the world of professional wrestling. I get it in the world of fight sports. You're going to have injuries pop up all the time. And you're going to as well in the world of professional wrestling. I right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't like it. I don't hate it. But if they're going to do it, it's a fresh idea for WWE, and it's definitely going to keep me coming back and watching.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think since we're talking about Karrion Kross's return, we're talking about SmackDown. One of the big things that I want to mention is under Vince, you had so many words that no, absolutely do not say this or you're fired, pretty much. Now that Vince is retired, you're starting to see SmackDown played this a few times where you're starting to see words creep out back in. So one of the biggest things, they're not wrestlers, they're sports entertainers. Heard both Michael Cole, Pat McAfee say the word wrestler, say the word wrestling at least once during SmackDown, if not multiple times. I think that is a big influence, obviously, of Triple H, and I think that's a good thing because at the end of the day, that's what we're watching is professional wrestling. Yes, it is sports entertainment. I get that. But it's always been professional wrestling since the territory days, since before the territory days.
Yes,
and it's good to see that coming back.
I totally agree with you. And it's good to reference history. I went back and watched SummerSlam again. And they've referenced table, ladders, and chairs from 2000. And they talk about Jeff and Matt Hardy. They talk about Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley. And they talk about Edge and Christian. I mean, it's okay to acknowledge history. During the Usos match, they recognized that Rikishi is their father, So it's stuff like that. It's like, fans know it. Just go ahead and acknowledge it, okay? And I think we're in a better time now where people are more accepting of that stuff, and why not? There's a history to this. No matter how goofy pro wrestling gets or is, there is a history to it, and fans really take an ache into that history and kind of stick up and respect that.
Oh, for sure. And you can't not look at the history of things. I mean, we were talking last week about Roman Reigns' title reign, his 700 plus days now. I don't have the exact number in front of me offhand, but we talked about previous champions and their reign, the Pedro Morales, the Bob Backlunds, the Hulk Hogans, which we'll get to in a little bit. That's a key topic for tonight. And the big one, Bruno Sammartino. You have to look at history and you have to acknowledge that history to move forward because that is the basis for your product.
Oh, totally. I mean, you have to acknowledge the history. Acknowledge the history keeps it going. And as we talk about history, I'm sitting here laughing because I've got Raw on in the background. No spoilers or anything. But they are going down. They're giving a big historic video package on the United States Championship. Past champions from other companies and showing other people. you didn't have that before. The U.S. Championship, the Intercontinental Championship were afterthoughts before. Good to see this, and I wasn't trying to trump what you were saying, but they're recognizing the history of the U.S. Championship, and they've showed all the greats that have won it. Right before is now they're heading to the U.S. match, but I love to see stuff like that, and I think most wrestling fans do. Let's admire the history, let's respect it, and let's talk about it, because right, wrong, and different, people are going to look it up anyways, but it's good as a whole to have, Big Brother acknowledge the history too.
Oh, for sure. And I'm glad you brought that up. I can't wait to watch it. I've got Raw recording. I did jump in for about 5 minutes before you and I connected. Saw the start of the show, just Bailey and crew coming out, Io and Dakota, but I didn't get much further than that because I was getting things set up and I got everything logged in. So I turned it off. I'll watch it after work tomorrow night. Probably won't avoid spoilers, knowing me, but I'm not upset about that. In today's day and age, it's hard to.
It's hard to. If you want to, you can, but man, it's really hard.
And the fact that you're saying they're running this video package, acknowledging the past, that makes me feel good, because it makes me feel like we're finally going in the right direction, and it's not just one man's playground like it has been for the past 3 decades.
Correct. This is going to be, it's going to be something else. I know. I'm excited. I'm excited for this match. And there's so much more left of Raw. I came in about the top of hour number 2, didn't see anything of hour 1. So I'm excited to go back and watch that. I've avoided the spoilers as well. All I've seen is what's been on while we've been talking and doing the show here. But yeah, I'm glad history is kind of like found itself back into it again, and like it didn't skip a beat, and everybody's like, oh, it's back. Okay. It's kind of refreshing, and how many times have you turned into a wrestling show recently and it's refreshing? Entertaining, but is it refreshing? And that's refreshing. Hey, we're acknowledging this now. Okay, good. And it seems that other wrestlers now are getting their names back that I'm reading. So that's good too. Let's give these guys their identities back.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. It's not on our list, it's not on our outline, but that's a great mention, because that's something else I read today is T-Bar.
Yes.
That's not who he is. That is not who T-Bar is. Best known on NXT is Dominik Dijakovic, and it looks like he is being repackaged back to be more like his NXT persona. Yeah,
a guy who could go in there. He had some solid programs. I believe he and Keith Lee went back and forth. And then I can't
3 matches.
Yeah, I can't remember Dijakovic's other run that he had, but he had a good run of matches, I know, with Lee. The guy that I was thinking about, and I know it wasn't on our show notes, but I'm like, man, this is a change that's going on, is Angel. Angel got his name back. He is now Angel Garza.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, there's a million Angels. I mean, he's Angel Garza, and he gets his name back. So I can imagine Triple H is walking into the men's and the women's locker rooms like Oprah, giving out cars, and you get your name back, and you get your name back, and you get your name back. But they should. I don't understand. I understand if they have to change their name for real name's sake and they want to get licensing, but
right, like Theory.
He was Dominik Dijakovic in NXT. That's how the fans knew him. Now he's going to be somebody else. Like, I didn't like that one bit. I got to think that they didn't like it either.
No, for sure. And to kind of get back on track, somebody else that is on our list that we have to absolutely touch down on, that sounds like he's getting repackaged back to his NXT name, Maximum Male Models, Max Dupree. Thank God we're going to go back to LA Knight if the rumors are true.
I hope so. And I hope on his way back to becoming LA Knight, he gets to just destroy this gimmick. However bad it is, the vignettes do make me laugh. I'm going to be completely honest. They make me laugh. So they're bad, but they're funny bad. But no,
Yeah.
let that guy be himself. It was L.A. Knight. The fans hated him. The fans hated him. They loved him. They hated him. They find passion with this guy, whether it's against him or for him. He moves. I hate to steal one here from the bloodline, but he's a needle mover. Eli Drake, L.A. Knight, he's a needle mover. Like, go back and watch the feud with him and Cameron Grimes from NXT last summer.
I was just talking about that with a couple people earlier today.
When when they were at the pool together, and L.A. Knight was trying to teach Grimes how to be a millionaire since Grimes just fell into his money. That was great stuff. The match I didn't care for because I was drawn in by everything else. Well, I was drawn in by L.A. Knight. L.A. Knight was who made that storyline. No knock on Cameron Grimes. Cameron Grimes is funny, but I thought L.A. Knight was the glue that made that thing go.
Oh, I can agree with that, but I also want to give credit to Cameron Grimes because he can hold his own. I think since he's taken on this money gimmick and kind of branched off from that in more recent times, he's really come into his own. He's got some great in-ring skills, some great moves that are just amazing that I know aren't all on him, but he recently had a feud with Braun Breaker. I didn't watch very much of it, but I did watch the match that him and Breaker had. And he's a talent that I think we need to watch out for. And LA Knight, I think, is what was a catalyst to bringing that out of Cameron Grimes.
Yeah. When I look at LA Grimes, it's not a knock on LA Grimes, and it's not a knock on the guy I'm going to bring up, but I kind of look at LA Grimes like I do the Miz. I think you could throw either one of those guys in there with anybody, and the match is going to work because they can adapt to the style of whomever's in there. Okay? If you threw Miz in there with Bobby Lashley, it's going to look good. Miz is going to be able to fight a Bobby Lashley match and pull it off. I think the same of LA Knight. Now, maybe not right now, but someday LA Knight can be on Bobby Lashley's level. But LA Knight has that capability, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. I'm glad you brought up The Miz. I think I can see your parallels there for sure, 100%. The Miz has always been one of my unsung hero favorite performers. Hands down. I'm going to just say it. He's the top heel in the company, in my opinion. And he doesn't need to be in the title picture. He doesn't need to be in the main event to carry the crowd and to make them feel how he wants them to feel. And I think LA Knight has that potential too.
Can I put my fantasy booking hat on for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Could you imagine if Flair and the Horsemen or some incarnation of the Horsemen were still around? My angle would be Miz would be trying to get into the Horsemen. Look at me. I'm Hollywood. I've got the good looking wife. I've got I've been on all the movies, but like the Horsemen would never allow him in because he was just the Miz. He was annoying. That'd be a great storyline, I think.
He's like the fly on the butt of the Horseman, to pun completely intended right there.
Yes. Oh man, that'd be fun. But that's decades apart. But man, you're right. Miz is the top. He is the top heel. Well, I mean, if you want to say Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns is on another level of a run right now. But you're right. The Miz is the top heel in the company.
Yeah. I mean, you're completely right. You can make an argument for Roman. I could even make an argument for Seth Rollins. But Seth Rollins, his thing, he just goes out there and is just, you can tell he is having fun, just having a complete blast doing what he's doing. And he's so over because of his in-ring work and because of his music and everything. But he doesn't have that commanding presence in the way the Miz does. He does have a commanding presence, don't get me wrong. But the Miz just brings that hatred out in the audience.
You mentioned the local guy, and I know you don't want me going off the railroad tracks here much, but I'm going to here because food for thought here. I read an article the other day that stated that Seth Rollins has surpassed Shawn Michaels when it comes to in-ring performance, and that we need to acknowledge him, that he has moved past Mr. WrestleMania.
Okay, let me digest that for a second.
But
Because Shawn
I
Michaels,
said that out loud. I said that out loud. I know you're like, man, don't go off the show plan. Don't go off the show plan, Nick. I'm like, no. You said Seth Rollins. A light went off in my head, and I read that article, and I'm like, And I'm not going to say what was said in the article, but man, I'm telling you, they made some good claims. They made some good claims.
And part of me wants to agree with you. I love Seth Rollins. I know him to a small level where I wouldn't call us even acquaintances, but I've had several interactions with him before he went to the WWE, in an interview capacity, in a capacity where I was writing wrestling reviews. This was 15, 20 years ago. But at the same time, I don't know if I can fully get behind that because Shawn Michaels has always been one of my all-time favorites. I don't know. It's definitely something to think about, but Shawn Michaels, the fact that he left for 4 years and came back 10 times, 100 times stronger than he was when he left, I can't put that aside. I can't put aside the matches with The Undertaker, Triple H, Ric Flair that he's had, especially the WrestleMania matches, Chris Jericho. He is, and I'm not knocking Seth Rollins. He's brilliant. I just don't know that I can quite put him above Shawn Michaels right now.
Okay.
But I don't have a problem with you bringing it up. I think that's great. I think that's something we need to do more is, when we do branch off occasionally, have those types of things where, we're not on the same level, but we're on the same page. But I think that's a great discussion. I think it's something we can focus on at another time for sure, because we are getting a little bit off. I want to get into our main topic of the day since we're about 20 minutes in talking about main roster new product, which I didn't want to spend that much time, but at the same time, that a lot of good stuff was brought up. So I think let's put a pin in that. Let's come back to that in a future episode because I think that's a great topic.
We just put a pin in it.
So, kind of branching away, we've talked a lot about new product. I think Triple H's influence is hugely, very slowly, but very largely coming into play with everything we've talked about. But one of the aspects that I'm going to really love about this show is I'm big on nostalgia. I like going back. We talked about it off the air yesterday. I pick a year or I pick a storyline that I love and I go back and I'll rewatch it. But today, what we're talking about, the main point of what we're going to talk about, I think, is really what got us started in wrestling. What brought us into the show. And I know we've got an outline here. We both kind of have a lot of parallels, I think, with the main thing that first started me in wrestling. And you have Saturday night's main events in your note. I think that's great. I think we're going to have a lot of interaction in there. But I mean, I'll just kick it off. Really, for me, going into wrestling, there are probably eras for me where I started watching and then I had a gap. And then I started watching again and there was another gap. I'm going to talk about the first two start points for me. And the earliest I have to start. Oh, I lost you, Nick. Not sure what happened. Stand by. I'm going to try and get him back. Maybe he lost connection. I'm going to just resend him the show link. I apologize. Nick Bowl, can you hear me?
The Wizard. Weird stuff happening here, but we're back together. Weird stuff.
I apologize. I'm not sure if I lost connection and it completely kicked us both out. I was watching the stream. You disappeared, and then my phone just went all wonky and lost cellular connection for a minute.
We're here. We're here. Okay.
But we're back.
We're back. Yeah. You were talking about what got us into wrestling, and I'm not going to steal what you said, but I think we're similar in age. But I think we got different likes, even though we have similar ages. So I can't wait to see where you go.
Yeah, and I'm excited for the same reason, since we're both, I mean, you and I both said last week, we both went on, hey, I'm 42, my name's Chris, I'm a wrestling addict. You said basically the same thing. So yeah, we're right in that same range of when we started. And for me, I go back to 1988. That is when I first remember watching wrestling. Nick, are you still with me?
I am, sir. I am listening to you.
Yep. Sorry, I apologize. Everything paused for a second. I want to make sure.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I was letting you go down your rabbit hole of the story. I'm anxiously waiting.
And the two eras that I jumped into wrestling revolve around similar parties. So 1988, I remember it was a Saturday night's main event. You've got Hulk versus Andre with the $1 Million Man in Andre's corner. And I'm going to go out and say it. This was the very first, no offense to the Bella Twins, twin magic shenanigans we've ever seen in wrestling. You've got the title on the line. Hulk Hogan is planning to go away to film a movie, so we have to get the title off of Hogan. Dave Hebner is the referee. Only is he? There is a screwy finish where Hulk loses the belt to Andre and then immediately hands it to the $1 Million Man. And this is really where I start getting into things. Ted DiBiase is stripped of the title. We get to WrestleMania 4, the big tournament, and Macho Man comes away with the title. I love Macho Man Randy Savage, always have, always will. Same with Hulk Hogan. And for me, the biggest memory I have is when those two combine themselves. You've got Randy Savage with the title. You've got Hulk Hogan coming back from filming his movie. And the Mega Powers, the over-exaggerated handshake, the madness coming with the Hulkamaniacs. I took some time today that I had a little free time that I wasn't expecting to have. So I took some time. I went back to SummerSlam 88, watched their big tag match against the Mega Bucks. That was brilliant. Took a little more time. Watched the tail end of their partnership, which was another Saturday night's main event in February of 89, where, I don't know if you remember this. This is a big memory for me because I'm sitting in my living room with my best friend at the time. We're watching. Randy Savage flies out of the ring, hits Elizabeth inadvertently. Hogan ditches him to take Elizabeth back to the first aid room, and the explosion thereafter. The build, that year-long build to WrestleMania 5, when the Mega Powers explode. That is really where my story begins.
And it's a great place to start. I'm sitting here smiling as you colorfully dictate these things, and I remember them. I remember all of this. Yeah, I remember when Hogan and Andre from Saturday Night's Main Event. I mean, yeah, that's the first time you felt screwed in wrestling. It's like, hey kid, welcome to wrestling. This isn't the last time you're going to feel this way. But yeah, I remember feeling legitimately pissed off after that show. I remember, WrestleMania 4, and then when the Mega Powers collide. You said that's where your journey starts. I'm not going to jump on your journey, but I remember I did not have cable until I was in high school, and I only had Sunday morning wrestling. So you got like the results a week later. I remember the night of WrestleMania 5. I had my dad call the radio station, which would have been the top 40 station in Davenport at the time, to see if they found out who won the match between Hogan and Macho Man yet.
Okay.
And they didn't know. And then when they found out, they announced it. Like, I heard on the radio that Hulk Hogan beat Macho Man.
That is just awesome. And, you know, it was definitely a different era back then because cable was so new. Not a lot of people had the pay-per-view ability. I'm with you. I didn't have cable access for when I was that young. It was anything on NBC Saturday nights and Saturday or Sunday morning when they were showing insert whichever show there. I mean, a lot of my influences when I was doing my brief stint in commentary, my 2 or 3 year run as a ring announcer for local wrestling, my inspiration came from Howard Finkel, Gorilla Monsoon, Bobby Heenan, just the great commentators and announcers from my childhood.
Oh, would you just stop? I wish in our older age, I appreciated Heenan. But man, going back and listening to Heenan and Monsoon, those guys, I could listen to those guys all day long. They were such a treasure. Those guys were comedy gold, and you didn't even know it because we were so young. Now you look back on it, it's like, man, these guys are great.
Oh, for sure. Heenan is, and I dropped his name last week. Heenan is by far one of the very best to ever grace the business, whether he's in that commentary role, whether he is behind a wrestler as a manager. Mouthpiece, just hilarious. The way he played off with Monsoon and later with Tony Schiavone, he is just a master. There's no way around it.
Yeah, he is the best, if not one of the best. And God, no one loves seeing, that was the guy you loved seeing get his, was Bobby Heenan finally getting his butt kicked, and when he did, he put on a show. It was great. Greatness. I wish he was still with us, but nonetheless, man, he definitely left an indelible mark all over the business.
He really did. And, we're talking about Heenan, we're talking about commentary. I want to mention another commentator from my childhood that stands out for a couple of reasons. Whether he was with Vince McMahon, whether he was with Gorilla Monsoon, Jesse the Body Ventura, also brilliant when he's sitting behind the commentator desk.
Oh, always with the Body commentating. I guess, I always picked it up on Saturday night's Main Event, but he always kind of brought the big fight feel with his commentary and his voice. It always it didn't matter who he was teamed up with, man. I thought he was great. I thought he was tremendous at what he did. And he was the Body. I just watched the Body last night. I watched SummerSlam 99, where he was a special guest referee of the Main Event between
I remember that.
Stone Cold, Triple H, and Mankind.
Yeah. What stands out to me for Ventura, though, is some of the names he would call people. Like,
well, that was the same thing with Heenan. Fair.
But the thing that stands out in my mind, and always, every time I hear this wrestler talked about, I think of Jesse Ventura. Because anytime someone talks about Tito Santana, all I can hear is Jesse's voice. Chico Santana.
Yeah, Chico. Go over there and tell Chico Santana not to cheat. Oh man.
And, I mentioned him because he's with McMahon in that Main Event where the Mega Powers start their separation.
Uh-huh.
And, he's completely justifying everything Macho Man does as he's turning heel.
Oh man, the body is so good. I might have to go back and watch that tonight. You've triggered an interest in that. Just to hear Body, talking about Macho Man and all the stuff that Macho Man's had to put up with, I'm guessing, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that, that whole storyline was just masterfully done. You don't see those year-long builds like that anymore, not to that depth. I mean, okay, they kind of did that when it was Cena versus The Rock, but again, it wasn't to the depth of Hogan losing the title, Macho Man gaining it at WrestleMania, them coming together to partner for I want to say about 3 to 6 months, if I'm remembering correctly, and then the jealous Macho Man, the looking at Hogan saying, "You've got lust in your eyes. You're jealous over me being the champion. You're lusting over Elizabeth." And then those two just coming together and banging heads at WrestleMania. That I would love to see something build like that again, where it starts even the night after WrestleMania. Something small that just snowballs for the next year, and then that is the event at WrestleMania.
Yeah. I before that too. I love that kind of stuff. And you're right. It's few and far between to see that anymore, and I think that's because maybe the wrestling company, the TV program, whatever it is, does not have the attention span of the viewer as it did before.
No, that's very true. That's a great point.
I know exactly what you mean. I love subtle long-term storytelling, and when you get a big payoff, it's fun and cool, and that's what that was with Hogan and Macho for sure.
And to your point, people don't have as much of an attention span, but at the same time, like we talked about last week when we were touching on Roman's title reign and those who are ahead of him in length and tenure holding the title, there weren't as many events. It wasn't an every week new product that they were putting out. I mean, it was to an extent, but not to the extent that it is where you have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have these two programs that just build week after week after week, and a pay-per-view every month, every 4 to 5 weeks. You had those long stints between those pay-per-views. I mean, it was WrestleMania, and then 88 was the first SummerSlam. I'm blanking as to when Survivor Series and Rumble started, but those were the four. You had the Royal Rumble at the beginning of the year, WrestleMania about 3 to 4 months later, SummerSlam, and then Survivor Series.
You're absolutely right. It was more set up for we're talking about long-term storytelling here, and you're right. Those were the four major ones. Even though it's such a much more different product now than what it was, and I mean pay-per-view each month, you got 2 TV shows, you got a TV show for your development. It's harder to do that, but I also think there's more opportunity to do it. So maybe, if you tried plugging in 2 or 3 things that took over a year to tell, and not necessarily with the same storyline, I think you would like the rewards. I think people would be like, oh, okay, they're investing some time in these guys. Obviously, they see something in these guys. I'm going to give these guys a little more time, or I'm going to give these gals a chance. Like, I think when you do that, you get more fans in. I think more fans like that as opposed to the typecast of, I just want to see blood and big high spots and 1, 2, 3. I love the psychology of the match. I love a story being told. And I think if you do that, you're only going to bring more fans in.
Oh, for sure. And, the only feud that I can think of in recent memory that has really done that, and I, on one hand, really dislike myself for saying this, but on the other hand, it was one of the best storylines of last year, was the build between Bianca Belair and Becky Lynch from SummerSlam last year all the way through. They came full circle SummerSlam this year.
Sure. And that's something. It went SummerSlam to SummerSlam. Absolutely. That's something that took a year. And what you had two people that have big followings. It was kind of a 50-50 draw. It wasn't like everybody was on one person's side. So that was challenging in that aspect. At the same time, you got two great female wrestlers go in there and tell a story, and did it 3 times. And credit to Big Time Bex for working with a separated shoulder, and that match still delivered. That's not the last we see of those guys. You're gonna see those two in the ring somewhere down the road. It may not be 6 weeks, 6 months from now, but it'll be somewhere down the road.
I agree. There's a lot of talent there. Your and my personal feelings about Bianca aside, there's a lot of in-ring talent. They're gonna, excuse me,
tremendous.
You're gonna see more out of them as they move along in their careers. But I kind of want to steer things back on topic a little bit here. It was a good tangent. We kind of went off. We were talking about the long-term build, and it led to that. That's great. But, like I said, for me, when I'm watching wrestling, I go in stints. I'll watch for a number of years. I'll kind of fall away from the product, and then I'll get drawn back in. And like I said, the second point, the one that really pulled me in and kept me in the longest, and I'm still watching this today, has to do with Hulk Hogan one more time. We're going to go forward in time about 8 years, July 1996. You've got Scott Hall, you've got Kevin Nash coming into WCW, acting like they're coming over from WWE, invading. And who's the third man? Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And that whole storyline is what really was like, okay, I'm hooked for life. There's nothing. I will always, even if I miss a year or two of storylines, or even if I'm just watching the pay-per-views for 1 year, I'm always going to be in wrestling. And it's because of the NWO.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a bigger storyline in our lifetime with just the shift. Hulk Hogan always being the good guy, Hulk Hogan always being in the red and yellow, and then wait, here comes Razor Ramon and Diesel. Like, I as a WWF fan growing up, I kind of knew what was going on in WCW, but for them to pull the trigger on that at that time and that moment in time, it was genius. And look what happened, and it changed wrestling history.
Oh, it did.
And but that would have been would that be like John Cena turning absolute turncoat heel at the height of his run? Is that what you can liken it to with Hogan doing that? I mean,
absolutely.
Hogan had never been a bad guy until then.
And he did it so brilliantly. The fact that he was the say your prayers, take your vitamins, superhero, red, white, and blue guy, to go a complete 180 the way that he did and how he did it just shows how brilliant of a performer he is.
And then you had Hall and Nash, who took being bad to a whole new cool level. So you have those three making bad cool. I mean, they definitely have their hands on what the industry is today. The NWO definitely is a key part of what happened in pro wrestling history.
Yeah, and you have to really take it aside and look at what it forced Vince McMahon to do at the time in the building of factions like Degeneration X, the whole Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Where would we be if Steve Austin had not left WCW for WWF? Where would we be if Eric Bischoff had not turned the tables, brought in Hall and Nash, turned Hogan heel? Where would the wrestling world be? That was one of those pivotal moments that not only sucked people in, but changed the business forever.
Yeah. The NWO launched a lot of things, and it also solidified WCW winning a lot in those Monday Night Wars. It was a while before WWEF won, or whatever you want to call them now, but NWO is huge. Like, you can't look back on wrestling history and factions and not mention the New World Order. I mean, changed wrestling as we watch it today.
Oh, absolutely. Now, did they get oversaturated eventually? Sure.
Oh, goodness, yes. Everything that's good always gets oversaturated. You're right. It ran its course, and then they split, and then they were the NWO Hollywood and the NWO Wolfpack, and then the LWO, the Latino World Order, came in there. But that was when WCW was running out of ideas. But for the NWO, definitely is huge, and it started back there in '96. Was that Bash at the Beach, Wizard?
Yes, 1996 Bash at the Beach.
Who's the third man? Who was it? It was Hogan.
Now, I want your opinion on something, because
sure.
I'm on the fence about this. Hogan comes out at Bash at the Beach, and the commentators are just, it's Hulk Hogan, he's coming to help. And Bobby Heenan does it spoil the whole night when Bobby Heenan says, yeah, but whose side is he on?
I don't know. I guess hindsight's always 20/20, right? But I never thought of it before. I guess Heenan
moment in commentary for me.
I don't know. Did Heenan have cause to ask?
Well, I think the reason Heenan said that is because of Heenan's ongoing feud with Hulk Hogan in general. I mean,
sure.
I don't remember what their disposition with each other was behind the scenes, but Heenan has always been opposed to Hulk Hogan since WWF days, from the get-go. And I think that's where that comment stems from. But it's much different if you're sitting in the crowd watching Hogan come in, drop the leg on Macho Man Randy Savage, than it is if you're sitting at home, Hogan comes in and Heenan drops that line. Then you're like, wait, what?
Sure. Well, I don't know. I you know what? It never spoiled it for me. It never spoiled it for me.
And I don't feel like it did for me either, but it's something that I've heard discussed, and I just wanted your opinion on that.
No, I think Heenan, being the, antagonistic color commentary guy, has to ask that. So, no, it doesn't ruin it for me.
And I think that's fair. I mean, I can see how some people could argue that, but I'm on the same page with you. I don't think it ruined it, but it just kind of was one of those comments that, as I look back on it, when I don't think I had watched the pay-per-view live. I'm 99% sure I did not. But when I look back on it now and I hear that comment, I'm thinking, how did this not spoil the whole angle that night for those watching at home?
It's a good question. I don't even know what the buy rate was for that show, but yeah, it's a good question. Because I did not watch that live. I was not watching live that night either. So, but it's a good question.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's going to be debated forever, honestly.
There's a lot of things that will be debated in the sport forever.
That's we could have multiple episodes on things that will always be debated.
Sure.
I mean, that comment, the Montreal screw job, there's so many things that you can look back and say, hey, and I digress. We'll move past that. We'll save those for another time. But
hey, I'm trying to stay on the plan here.
And I mean, the only other thing that I've already mentioned, the NWO, you wouldn't have the Attitude Era without that. I think the Attitude was the big changing factor, obviously the deciding factor for WWF, WWE, whichever you want to call it, winning the Monday Night Wars. And I think it really brought out the best in a lot of talent. I mean, look at who all came out of that era.
For sure.
That are either in the Hall of Fame or should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I can just name off the top of my head Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Kurt Angle, and that's just a few people.
The Rock, Undertaker, Bret the Hitman Hart, Edge and Christian. Did you say Triple H?
Yep.
There's so many. Owen Hart was in there. There's so many.
Yeah, that's a topic that I want to hit on at some point, but don't get me started right now.
No. There were a lot of stars. There were a lot of stars that took that opportunity and ran with it for sure.
Oh, when absolutely. Yeah, that you are 100% correct there, because there was so much opportunity and so many people, not just one person stands out grabbing that brass ring. Pretty much everybody who went through the Attitude Era came out on the other side as a first ballot Hall of Famer, hands down.
And there's a lot of guys we're not even mentioning. I'm just thinking about look like a guy like JBL, who was like a tag team guy through the Attitude Era, and then became a single star afterwards during like the Ruthless Aggression era, was a world champion. So there's a lot of people that wrestled during the Attitude Era that turned out, even bigger afterwards.
No, absolutely. It was such a groundbreaking time, not just for the people who were headlining it, but for those who were in the mid-card or lower, building them for the next generation.
Oh, for sure, man. For sure.
And I think, honestly, where I'm looking at our little outline here. I feel I've talked enough about my start. I know we talked a little bit about yours, but I'm anxious to hear what brought you where you started. What stands out to you as that one moment that said, "Hey, this is something I'm going to love forever."
I think, I spoke earlier and said that I was pretty limited on what I could see. A lot of mine was like Saturday night's main event, or you hurried home after church and saw wrestling. And I really remember like WrestleMania 6 and not Macho Man, but Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, the ultimate challenge, right? And, that was the first time we really saw a face and a face at least for me at that age. So I remember the build to that being just huge. It was like you liked both guys. It didn't matter to me who won, but it was just such a weird thing at the time. You'd never seen anything like it. So I remember the build to that. The huge build to WrestleMania for that. every Saturday morning, one last week towards WrestleMania, and you got updated on what was going on in that storyline. So I will always remember that for sure. You talk about the Attitude Era. For me, I was always a WWF guy, and it was Austin. I mean, whatever Austin did, you had to watch, whether it was a pay-per-view or on Raw. And I did have cable in high school when Austin was in, and I was in high school and in college. And I remember having to go to the cable company and getting the cable box to have to rent the pay-per-view, and then returning the cable box on Monday morning. I remember watching WrestleMania 14 that way, WrestleMania 15 that way. I remember watching other pay-per-views like that. King of the Ring 98 is one of those that I'll never forget.
I don't think anyone will.
But I watched a lot of pay-per-views that way, and a lot of those were because of Stone Cold and the impact that he had. And for sure, and I've taken wrestling off here and there. The recent edition of AEW, it's a different product, and I've watched most of that from the start. Took a few weeks off here and there after the passing of Brody Lee. But I'm just a big fan of tag team wrestling. I always have been. That's my number one thing. I love tag team wrestling, and they really showcase it on AEW, and they got a loaded tag division, and that's why I like them. I mean, the other wrestling is just icing on the cake, but I've always been a tag team wrestling fan. I've always been critical when companies don't use tag team wrestling like the WWE, and I don't know. I just like, to me, when there's a good tag team match going, that's 5 moving parts when you count the referee, and then it's just more moving parts. Yes, more can go wrong, but man, when it's pulled off right, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what's really kind of brought me into wrestling. I love the nostalgia of it, the presentation of it. I love going back. I think I told you off the air, I was going back and watching the Clash of the Champions, the old Clash of Champions, and I love the presentation. We both worked in TV production, and I love the presentation. I love the graphics. I've always loved the pageantry of wrestling, the entrances, the music. That's the best part of wrestling to me. I love the in-ring action, don't get me wrong, but it's all the lead up and then the post. It's the pageantry, like I said. Love title belts. I love the old graphics on shows and stuff like that. I just love it. And going back and seeing that old stuff, it takes a trip down memory lane and makes you think where you were when this was going on. And it also opens to me a whole bunch of wrestling I've never seen in my life because I didn't have cable television. I wasn't privy to it. So I love watching particularly old NWA, WCW stuff I never knew about growing up as a kid. You would see it on wrestling magazines and stores, but I never saw it on TV, so I never knew anything about it.
And that's the one thing that I love about the WWE Network and now Peacock is they've got this massive library that you can go back and you can watch all these brilliant matches. I mean, just the 80s alone with Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat, that whole rivalry, Terry Funk. There's a lot of good stuff out there that is so nice to have access to. On that note, I also want to mention back when Tony Khan announced that he bought ROH, there was talk, there were rumors about a partnership with, I want to say HBO Max to bring the AEW and the ROH library onto a streaming service. I'm waiting for that to happen because there is so much in ROH. I didn't watch AEW for probably the first 2 years. I'm only just now getting into it in the last 6 months. So there's a lot of stuff that I'd love to go back in that company and watch, as well as, ROH especially, because you and I have been to a couple of ROH shows together. There's a lot of people who are big names in the industry that went through there that I'd love to just revisit their matches. So I really hope that, like the WWE, Tony Khan finds a way to get ROH and AEW their own or partner with a streaming service so we can go back and watch their old stuff.
Yeah, I totally agree. But if you want to go back and watch some of that early stuff, I've got a whole tote of ROH DVDs you can go through if you want.
Yeah, I might take you up on that because I'm trying to remember the event. We talked about Claudio last week. One of my best memories of going to any ROH show was in Dayton, Ohio. I was with my friend Josh at the time.
Yep.
Age of the Fall was still a thing. Jimmy Jacobs, Tyler Black, Delirious. I was wearing the cap, the Age of the Fall cap that I had bought at the show. I start mouthing off to Claudio. He looks over me and says, "Shut up with your stupid hat."
And that's your brush. And that's your brush with fame with the Ring of Honor champion.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. So I think we need to put a pin in this episode, Nick. We've been talking for a little over an hour.
Oh yeah, we could go on. We could go on and on and on. But yeah, for sure, dude, for sure. This was a good one, man.
I agree. I had a lot of fun, and I put it on you over the weekend here. I'm gonna put you on the spot. What are we gonna talk about next week?
Here's what we're going to talk about next week. I brought up Clash of the Champions tonight. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of those things, and we're going to talk about the severe misuse of AEW's Battle with the Belts. I'm going to give a brief overview of the 3 Battle of the Belts, and we're going to talk maybe, hey, let's book something big for this 4th Battle of the Belt coming up. So we're going to talk a little bit about the old Clash, about the Battle of the Belts. I'm sure there's going to be some stuff come up this week, but that's going to be my number one thing to talk about next week.
And I know one thing that, we do always touch on the current product. One thing that I'm going to want to talk about is Moxley versus Jericho. I think just looking ahead, that match is going to be the best match of the show on Dynamite this week. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I'm anxious to hear, and you'll have to send me a couple of Clash of the Champions that I can watch, because I am not very versed in Clash of the Champions. It's something that I haven't really gone back and watched, but it's something that I've wanted to. So you'll have to send me a couple good ones that I should watch.
For sure. I can absolutely do that. I'll get that information to you off air. But yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to next week. Obviously, whatever happens big news-wise between now and then, we'll cover. But you can put that on the map. We're going to look at Clash of Champions and Battle of the Belts.
Well, I will, yeah, I'll, as soon as it lets me edit my outline here, I'll put that as a title, and you and I can go back and forth. I'm excited. I think that'll be another great show.
Hey, I am too for sure.
One last thing on my end here. I meant to do it off the top of the show. Got to give a big shout out to my buddy Joe Winkle over at the, I'm going to have to look up, I'm blanking. My brain is not working on the name of his podcast. He's part of the For Frequency's Sake network, though. Great podcast talking all about sports. The Educated Ignorance Pod Show, or as I like to call it, Joey Winky and the Boys. So hey, I want to thank Joe for shouting us out last week.
Hey, and we appreciate it. You keep your pet names to yourself. Okay? Now,
all right, fair enough.
Is DJ going to listen to this? I don't think he listened to our first one. I think he says he does, but he doesn't.
Well, I lost you there for a second. Say that one more time.
I was going to say, do you think our friend DJ is going to listen to this? He says he listens, but I don't think he does.
Well, I think it's hit and miss. He said he listened to at least part of last week, so maybe he will.
Oh, I know he does. I just love giving him a hard time. Because it's easy.
Yeah, I agree. And we'll have to have him on for one of our discussions at some point, if he's willing and has time. I think maybe
he's a very busy man. He's a very busy man.
He is. He's all over the place. But we wouldn't be here without him. So got to give him a lot of
praise. Very, very thankful for the opportunity. That is for sure.
Completely agree. All right, Mr. Bull, I'm excited for next week, and I look forward to talking with you here and going another round for the world at large.
Absolutely, as always, card is subject to change. But stay tuned for next week. Looking forward to it, Mr. Wizard. We'll see you then.
All right. And just so you know, we do have our own Twitter page. It is CSTC Podcast on Twitter. I am at the Wizard C to Z. Nick, I believe, is Nick _ Bull 50 or no underscore. Nick Bull 55.
At Nick Bull 55.
So shout us out on social media, and we look forward to any feedback you have, and we'll talk to y'all next week.